Welcome to you. I never spoke a piece before, but yet it seems I have the floor. My speech is short, my words are true. 'Tis just we welcome all of you. And now we'll wait for Lori. Okay.
Yes, cheat sheet. Here she comes. I lost my middle last name. Not yours. Your mother's. Lieb. Eddie's 92 years old and she's our president. And I just all excited that she's always here helping.
Whether I know what I'm doing or not. Someone show me.
So I'm Lori Parker. I am the curator. Betty is the president, and we just have lots of adventures with history. And if anybody else has that, it's a fun adventure that we're having. It seems like everything. If something comes to you, it needs to have the story told. Sometimes we don't get it told very good, but it's here and we're protecting it as best we can. A lot of our people here are turning 80, so we thought we'd have birthday cake with a quilt, and it'd be all but I'm looking through here and my 80-year-olds aren't here today. One's sick, and she shared with us her birthday cake recipe that was in her family. And I think Karen brought a birthday cake favorite recipe and cooked it up for us today, so we can have our own birthday cake party. And then I saw Margaret give her display for the DAR about her mom and the quilts, and a son showed up. I am very touched that you came to see this, and you'll be talking about it to everybody too, so and probably bring some memories back. I know I have a quilt in my family. My mother died when I was 9, and there was a baby quilt, and I kept asking grandmothers, who made this for me? And I never found out until my grandmother died. Everybody said, not me, not me. And even this grandmother said, not me. But when I was going through her things, I found a little box, and in there were quilt top, the patterns. So the embroidery, the template was right there. I was like, Grandma, you told me you didn't make this. I mean, she's passed away. But it was my great-grandmother that made that baby quilt for me. But it was almost like it had to be told. And I'm sure everybody's got a story that it needs to be told to pass it down. So Reese is going to help us hold up the quilts. I have someone to tell us about their quilts and their mother, and we've talked about the birthday cake. And I don't know if people are curious about quilts, but this one is from Barbara Brackman. One day I will go to one of her presentations, but she's into the Civil War quilts. But this is about one that was done in 1933 for the World's Fair. And if anybody knows me, the World's Fair, we have a lot of connections with T.J. Johnston, who was a 1890. His paintings were at the World's Fair in Chicago in 1893. And so this one, they gave away prizes. It was a contest. And they cheated. They bought people, they paid people to make their quilts, wanted to enter, because the enter price was the entrance, the gifts or whatever, prizes were like worth 2 vehicles. So maybe that's why they were cheating to get that prize money. So if anybody wants to look through this, and if anybody can, maybe we could go together to bring Barbara to do a presentation. Maybe it's to your quilt turning that you do. Is it January? And you've already, I'm curious about the barn quilt. Is that what you want people to bring barn quilts this time?
I don't think so.
I was trying to picture that happening, and that would be a big
Our
test.
drawing will be a barn quilt.
Okay, okay. Well, that's good too. So, are you ready? You
Just
want
about.
some? Oh, I hear you coughing over there.
It took you too long to get me started. I'm still coughing. I don't think I'm contagious or anything, but I'm just getting over bronchitis and influenza A.
And this is Margaret Huffman.
Yes. And so I'm here today mostly just to talk about different quilts that my mother made or worked on. Not all of them were ones that she created herself, but I'll explain the different ones. So I just have a couple bits about quilt trivia.
She's
And
recorded.
Redwork was the most popular quilts in the 1800s. It said that the predominant shade was turkey red, not because it was for red wheat, but from the dye that came from Europe. And it was the most available dye at that time in the 1800s. And the women in the countryside needed to do something because their lives were pretty drab and lonely and isolated and prone to depression. So the red would help, liven things up a little bit. And when this particular article was written was 1999, and it said that redwork was beginning to come back and to be popular again. And then in the 1900s, the popular colors were pinks, blues, and white. And Puss in the Corner was popular, and that happens to be the first one I'm going to talk about. So this one, my mom made, and with, I think her mother helped her also, in 1931 and 32. And it's well worn, as you can see. The colors are pink, blue, and the blue is from her brother's shirts and her mom's dresses and aprons, and the pink was figured, she thinks it was from her sister's. I suppose she was referring to you can't hardly even tell that there's pink there or down there, but she thinks they were one of her sister's dresses. The plain pink was purchased material, and it has a thin batting, and a plain block between each patchwork is quilted in a design that's rather elaborate. The quilt was bound with 1/2 inch blue bias border, which is practically completely worn out. And so in 1932, this quilt got a blue ribbon at the Marshall County Fair in the Patchwork Division. My mother and her family lived around Lillis, and so they always participated in the county fair, which was the Rapids. So that was 1932. So in 1986, people from the Kansas State Historical Society numbered quilts, and this quilt was numbered at that time, and its number is CF8 in that quilt project. So the backing is made from, you want to hold it up a little bit? The backing is made from 5 sugar sacks, and the pattern was from the Kansas City Star Weekly newspaper, November the 26th, 1930. Oh, I have some more down here. Okay, thank you. So that's that one.
it the right number?
Yeah.
Number 2. Those colors held up well.
Yeah, it hasn't been used as much, I don't think. It was more recently made. Well, in a way, it was more, let's say, more recently finished. So this is a necktie quilt, and the material for the ties is all cotton in prints, plaid, stripes, and plains. The colors are red, blue, gray, pink, tan, and lavender, and they're all put together with white blocks, and the white blocks all have a small design. There's 192 6-inch blocks, and the quilting is inside each one of these areas is quilted around, and then in the middle they're just across the ties. So this quilt, the material was cut out by my great-grandmother, Martha Lieb, and sewed together by one of my aunts, Lorna Lieb, in the 1920s, and it was finally finished, put together by my mom, and quilted in 1989. So it had a long time in the box, you know. And so the lining on it is polyester with the backing of plain rose, and it is bound with the bias rose material. And the back is just the plain. So that one, I kind of like that one. I don't know, it's kind of neat that a great-grandmother made it. And then the next two, well, maybe a couple more are made by great-grandmothers too. So anyway, that's that one.
That's a big one. Would that be on a king-size bed?
No, it's good on a queen.
Queen, yeah.
Queen beds are that.
Well, see, that's why she put these extra borders on to make it a little wider, because, well, I think we discussed how it should be, and I wanted it bigger. She was going to give it to me, so. This one's called the shoe fly variation. In it, there's 30 blocks, each 9-inch squares. And the materials are gingham, chambray, and all of them they're all cotton. And they're set together with rose pink, except in the corners where they're put together with the same design as the edge. The lining of the quilt is thin material, and the backing is flower is it says chicken feed sacks in red and blue. Yeah, so I guess that was that.
Margaret, what year was that one?
Well, I haven't. Let's see. Well, it kind of has a long background too, but it was probably finished in 1956. But so a grandmother, Melvina Davis, which is a different one than that last one, she is the one that made the blocks. And then I guess it was in a box until about the time my no, because she used it. I'm not sure when it was made, but my My grandma used it on her bed in the summertime for a bedspread. And it says, the blocks were probably made in the teens or the early 20s. And the quilting was done with large quilt crocheting or something, I think is the name of it. And my mom belonged to a group of ladies that met each month, and they did things for each person. She usually was having them quilt, but some of the ladies had them embroidery blocks, and some of them they sewed rug rags and different things like that. But she belonged to that club for a lot of years, and so they did over half of the quilt in one day with this heavy thread that they used for that one. Okay, that's all I know about that one. You can see how all the fabrics are different in different eras of time.
Do they call that print on the back something special? It feels like I've seen that a lot.
It was a chicken feed sack.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
Pretty fancy chicken feed
Yeah.
sacks. It looks like a Hawaiian print to me.
So can we put both of those kind of up at the same time, just like halfway? So these two were also put together by a great-grandmother, Malvina Cayley Davis. And she came to Kansas from Ohio. Before she was married, she was a seamstress. And if you get close up, you can tell like where these things are all sewed together. It's very fine stitching, a lot more so than the other great-grandmother, who wasn't a seamstress necessarily. But so she died in 1921. So these quilts were made, the back or the blocks were made before then. And it was they were probably made in the late 19s, she says. So when the Davis lady died, then my grandma received the tops. And one is the double Irish chain, and the other is the Irish chain. I guess this is the double one. There. And the blues, the dark blue calico, and let me see where it says this. I know that people that lived in Ohio used the dark blue, and then other ones, oh, I can't see it here, but they use the lighter blue. But anyway, they're all made of dark blue calico materials. And so after the great-grandma died, my grandma gave the 2 quilt tops to her brother, who lived in Oklahoma. And for me, I cannot figure out why she would have given them to him, because he was a bachelor, and what was he going to do with 2 quilt tops that weren't finished? But anyway, that's what happened. And then in time, he moved to Oregon to live with his nephew. And so he took the quilt tops with him. And then eventually, my grandma and 2 of her daughters went out to Oregon to visit him, and then her sister that lived out there. And so he gave her the quilt tops to one of my aunts, my Aunt Letha. And so that brings us up to when she died in 1993. She still had these 2 quilt tops. And so then when my other aunt and my mom were going through her things, because they had to get ready for an auction, and So my mom took the 2 quilt tops, and she got, I think she had the Onega Senior Center people quilt it, maybe, quilt them. And she finally got all this done, and she gave them to me in 2001. So there was a lot of history there for those quilts.
How many miles are on them?
Right, going all the way across the country a couple times, yeah. So they're plain white on the back, and the quilting is just straight lines. Oh, and they are, this one is in the Kansas Quilt Project too, CF12. So, I mean, I don't know anything about what that was, except that I knew they were doing it. And I knew she took some quilts there, but I don't know particularly, you know, the reason for having them numbered. So you can take those down if you want.
What is that, Kansas Quilt Project?
I'm not sure what year. Does somebody know what year they started numbering those quilts for the history of them?
Well, that was, those 2 that she had numbered were 1986.
Is that registered like with the state or?
Yeah.
Sounds like Kansas Historical, maybe. Is this something?
So I think this is the next one. Yeah.
I think it started in 1976.
For the
Which is the
centennial.
anniversary of our founding, there's 200 and they did a lot of that kind of stuff.
Oh,
in
okay.
76, which would kind of blend in with the,
Uh-huh.
they may have started and not really gotten very far.
Yeah,
Well, that's
exactly.
cool, that there's a record and
Yeah. So this one is a Dresden plate is the name of it. And she, I think she just purchased these plates, this part here. Because then she applied them to white muslin and then set them together with blue sashes that are 4.5 inches wide, and the border then is 9 and 11 inches. So this is a little bit smaller than some of the quilts. There's 12 blocks, each 15.5 inches square. The quilting is diagonal. The lining is cotton and the batting is cotton. And I don't have much more on that. That's all on that one.
I'm sorry, I'm stupid about this, but did you have to fill out forms, or is there like a registration form? Or?
Well, I don't know, because that was my mom that did this.
Mhm.
And I knew she was doing it, but I don't know what the process was. I think they came to some place like Onega or somewhere, and people brought in quilts. That was my understanding. Maybe it wasn't Onega, I don't know.
Well, I have all these quilts that my mother-in-law did, and
Oh,
she didn't do anything about it, and so that would be neat to get those registered.
Well, yeah, I don't know if they still do it. It looks like they might. Yeah, that's it. So this one is my baby quilt.
Oh,
Turn it around.
Yeah.
that's the back.
That's yeah, all the little animals.
Pretty on both sides.
This is, there's 17 animal blocks and 18 plain paint blocks, about 6 1/4 inch square. The back is little Bo Peeps feed sacks, and is bound in the feed sack material. It looks like the back is better than the front. It's quilted in squares except for the animals, and I think just around the edge of the block for those. And she got the pattern from one of her friends. I don't know, you people from Onega might know Pauline Valentine. She was an old lady up there. Anyway, and then when my oldest daughter was born, she made another one for her with the same animals, only it was made with yellow. And I guess my daughter has it because I can find it anywhere. I did try to give things to the rightful owners at one time. Okay.
Before you do that, could you turn it over to see the feet stack part? I go with my feet stack talk.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So this is another baby quilt of mine. My mom didn't have anything to do with this one, but I wanted to show it because my grandma made it, her mother made it. And it was made, I don't know, I thought I got it when I was a baby, but she has in this right up that I was 3 or 4 years old. But anyway, it's made of silk, cotton, blends in dark colors, predominantly blues in crazy quilt designs. So you can see the different crazy quilt stitching that she used to finish the edges of it. So the backing is cotton outing flannel, and it's about 36 by 48. And several of the pieces, the silk pieces, have rotted, and so she has she made different ones and put on that spot where the rotten part was. So it's pretty good shape right now.
It looks like it's in like 9-inch blocks, and then those are put together.
Yeah, I think that's probably about right, 9 or 10. Yeah.
Is that how crazy quilt works?
I think so.
Nowadays, I think they just start sewing it on a sheet
Well,
and just keep going.
no, I think they make a block, maybe make it on a block, and then sew the blocks together. And probably for this one, it was, there's one, you know. Okay.
And what's the back on that one?
It's the cotton flannel.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not quilted, it's tied, so it's kind of a puffy.
Oh, cool.
About what year, 50s?
No, 1945. And my grandmother made one for all the first daughters of her daughters, but I guess she didn't make them for the rest of them because we had a little discussion about this when we got together a while back, and well, some of them did have one, but all the oldest girls did. So I guess we were the lucky ones. Now, 9, where is 9? Yeah, it is. This is very big. So this is the fan quilt, and all of them have red in them and yellow at the end of the fan. And the blocks are 6.5, and they're on a white background. There's 154 blocks, and she says the fabric is from her stash. So she used to go to auctions a lot, and she would buy scraps of fabric and everything, you know. So anyway, so that's where she got most of this fabric. The quilting is all in the fans, and she gave it to me in 1991.
So did she make it special just for you?
I think she did, if I recall correct. She asked me what color I wanted, and this is what I wanted, something with red in it. I remember telling her, and that's what she came up with.
So is that all hand quilted?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of her quilts were hand quilted. And then we have this one.
How'd she set that up? Did she have a big?
She put a quilting frame in the kitchen, They added on to the kitchen in the 70s, and she could put a quilt in there. So
My
it's
mother-in-law.
kind of in the way, right, Mark?
When the
Remember
scene-
back in the old days when it was in the living room where they built the kitchen and you couldn't
Yeah.
hardly get through.
Right.
My mother-in-law had hers in the living room. She lived at the senior center,
Oh,
and one of her sons or something had made one out of pie,
oh,
plastic pie. I had bought her one, but she didn't like it, so I don't know what she did with it.
So this one's called the baby wedding ring or little wedding ring. And in this one there's 72 rings. The colors are all pink, blue, green, gold, lavender, and red prints. And they're not very big print or pieces. You can see they're all just maybe an inch or inch and a quarter on the end. The outer edge is just straight binding is pink and yellow, and one outer edge of white. And the quilting kind of goes around with the design in the middle, and then a square at the very center. So the backing is white muslin, and she didn't say how long it took her to make the top, but it took her 1,500 hours to quilt it. So that was a
I
lot.
love how she did the different colors on the banding around.
Yeah, it really makes the yellow and pink pop a little bit better. So those are all the quilts that I brought with me. I have some pictures of some that I'm going to just pass around, and you can look at them if you want. You don't have to if you don't. But anyway, these pictures are of quilts that she gave away. So I can't show them, because they're not around my house. But she made a quilt for all my children and my grandchildren, and so 3 of her quilts are in Australia with 3 of my grandchildren, and then the other 2 my grandchildren live in Lawrence, so some of those are there, and then my girls each got at least 1 quilt over the years. So I think she said that she had made at least 34 or 35 quilts. And she did it, I would say, before she got married and then after she retired. And she lived to be one day shy of 103, so she had quite a few years to work on quilts there at the end. And she did. She just had one going all the time, it seemed like.
We didn't have any kids, but she made quilts for all the kids. And when they got married, and then we eloped, and that kind of messed up her schedule, but she eventually gave me a quilt for our wedding. And then she made one for grandchildren, and then one of the sons didn't have children until later on.
Somebody was showing.
And so I don't think she only made quilts for 2 of the 4 grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
So she liked me a little bit better than the other ones. And so I got like 4 quilts, and they all only got 1. And so I was thinking that since I got more quilts, that I should give 1 each to the grandchildren that didn't get
Oh, yeah.
didn't get a quilt. And then I think some of the maybe great-grandchildren or whatever, she gave them like pillowcases or something, because she belonged to the Jolly Thimble Club,
Oh.
which I don't think is as cool sounding as
Well,
so
this was
was.
a Needlecraft Club was
Needle.
what my mom
Yeah,
had.
but since you're saying that she made them for all the oldest children.
Oh,
So-
those were
No,
my
that's
grandmother.
Lisa.
Oh, your grandmother.
Yeah.
Well, I know when she died, we all brought quilts, and so they brought their quilts, and I had all these quilts laid out. And they said, well, how come you got so many? And I don't know. She'd like me better. I don't know. Well, I took her place.
So Lori, I think that concludes my talk.
Okay.
There's a holiday in such a good shape.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Well, ours, the ones my mom makes my kids and everything, they get kind of worn out.
Well, we
Especially if the babies drag them around, you gotta wash those things.
Right. Some of these are just mostly in a box, and I get them out for special occasion a few times a year, you know, and put them on the bed. And if I'm going to have DAR, I have to put one on all the beds, you know, so they can see them. But
You just take them out.
I don't use them that much because I guess I don't want them to wear out. I don't know.
So I have two questions. I have one that my mother-in-law made my husband when he came to college, and it got wet and a corner of it's messed up. Do you know anybody that fixes those? Can fix them?
I wonder if Frankfurt
I don't know.